What if I told you the Mother of God visited a dying teenager and whispered a promise so profound it would echo through generations? What if that promise wasn't just for him, but for us? This is the true story of Saint Carlo Acutis, a 15-year-old boy who, while dying of leukemia in a hospital room in Milan, received a message from the Blessed Virgin Mary that is still unfolding today. A message of hope, a mission, a miracle. You're about to witness a spiritual mystery that is changing the Catholic Church from within. So if you believe miracles still happen, subscribe, like, and journey with us as we explore Mary's promise to Saint Carlo Acutis before his death. October 9, 2006. The air in San Gerardo Hospital was heavy. Carlo Acutis had been admitted just 3 days earlier, yet the aggressive form of leukemia attacking his young body was progressing at lightning speed. But something sacred was happening in that hospital room. His mother, Antonia Salzano, would later say that Carlo wasn't afraid of death. He radiated peace. And more than that, she noticed him speaking aloud to someone invisible. When she gently asked, "Carlo, who are you speaking to?" he smiled faintly and said, "She's here with me. She's been preparing me for this moment my whole life." That she, Antonia would soon realize, was Mary. But what was Mary preparing Carlo for? According to Carlo's private conversations with his mother and spiritual director, Our Lady didn't just come to comfort him. She came with a promise. A 3-part promise that would carry eternal implications. A promise that seemed impossible for a dying 15-year-old, but is being fulfilled even now around the world. Let's start with the first part. Mary said, "Your body will not decay, and through it, I will show the world that holiness is real and possible." When Carlo passed away just days later, this seemed poetic, but surely impossible. Bodies decay, even the saints. But when his tomb was opened in 2019, 13 years after his death, the world was stunned. Carlo's body lay incorrupt. No signs of decomposition. His face, his limbs, his features, all preserved. Pilgrims who visited his tomb in Assisi began reporting something more. They didn't just feel peace. They felt her presence. There were whispers of encounters, of Mary, of Carlo, together. Today, over 200,000 pilgrims visit his tomb annually. Some report healings, others visions. Many describe the smell of roses, the traditional scent of Mary's presence. But more than that, dozens have described what can only be called dual apparitions, Mary and Carlo appearing together. A woman from Spain described kneeling before Carlo's glass tomb, weeping over a chronic illness. She said, "I looked up, and I saw them. Mary standing behind him with her hand on his shoulder, and Carlo smiling. I wasn't afraid. I felt joy." Church officials have begun quietly documenting these encounters. The second promise? Mary told Carlo, "Your mission of documenting the Eucharistic miracles will continue through you. Even in death, you will draw souls to my Son." Before he died, Carlo had already begun his extraordinary work. He compiled over 136 Eucharistic miracles into a global exhibition, digitized, translated, and spread across 5 continents. A teenager had done what entire church commissions had struggled to do. But that was just the beginning. Since his death, miracles tied to Carlo often happen near these exhibitions. Healings, conversions, vocations, and there's more. Almost every miracle attributed to Carlo's intercession includes a Marian sign. Roses, apparitions, a woman in blue. It's as if Mary is saying, "I'm still here. We're doing this together." One priest in Mexico shared that a teenage girl was healed of epilepsy after kneeling before an image of Carlo. But here's the detail that stunned him. She said a woman appeared next to the image and placed her hand on the girl's head. When shown Marian icons, she said, "Yes, that was her. That was the woman." Carlo and Mary, saints in synergy. The third part of Mary's promise is perhaps the most astonishing. "Through your intercession, I will raise up a new generation of saints. Youth will turn back to holiness." This may have sounded unbelievable in 2006. Carlo was known in his parish, but not globally. Instagram was just launching. TikTok didn't exist. Yet Mary's promise was already working. By 2020, the Vatican named Carlo patron of the Internet. Today, youth groups from Nigeria to Argentina chant his motto, "The Eucharist is my highway to heaven." But Mary didn't just say that youth would be inspired. She promised to appear to them, often with Carlo, and call them. In Brazil, over 50 teenagers reported seeing both Mary and Carlo during adoration in 2010. In the Philippines, entire youth groups say they were urged in visions to create Eucharistic miracle exhibitions just like Carlo's. In Poland, young pilgrims kneeling before the Black Madonna saw a boy kneeling beside her. When shown pictures, they pointed, "That's him. That's Carlo." The consistency is overwhelming. Different languages, cultures, continents, but the same figures, the same message. Return to the Eucharist. Follow the path of Carlo. Trust Our Lady. In the next part of this emotional journey, we'll explore the miracles that led to Carlo's beatification and the Marian secrets behind them. Why every healing tied to Carlo also reveals Mary's hand. And how this story may point to a divine plan for the future of the Church. If this story is awakening something in your soul, don't keep it to yourself. Like, share, and subscribe, because we are just beginning to uncover the legacy of this extraordinary teenager and the promise of a mother who never forgets her children. In the previous part, we explored the stunning three-part promise Mary made to Saint Carlo Acutis as he lay dying in a hospital room in Milan. A promise of incorruptibility, a promise that his Eucharistic mission would continue from heaven, and a promise that a new generation of young saints would rise through his intercession, guided by Mary herself. Now, we dive deeper into the miracles, apparitions, and the mysterious ways heaven is still working through Carlo today. We'll examine the healings that defy medical science, the apparitions that defy explanation, and the pattern that points to something far greater than coincidence. A divine design unfolding before our very eyes. The Church requires verified miracles for beatification and canonization. Carlo's first official miracle happened in Brazil. A young boy, just 6 years old, named Matthias Vieira was suffering from a rare and deadly pancreatic disorder. His condition was deteriorating rapidly. Doctors had exhausted all options. His mother, desperate and filled with faith, began asking heaven for help. A woman she met in the hospital, a stranger she would never see again, whispered, "Pray to Carlo Acutis. Ask him." This puzzled her. She had never heard the name before, but that night she looked him up online, and for the first time saw Carlo's image. Her son, who was in excruciating pain, suddenly exclaimed, "That's him. That's the boy who came with the lady in my dream." The next morning, the child was completely healed. But what caught the Church's attention wasn't just the healing. It was the pattern, a detail that matched dozens of other miracles being reported worldwide. Each one carried a Marian presence. In this case, young Matthias described Mary standing beside Carlo, placing her hand on his stomach and whispering, "Let it be healed, in the name of my son." Multiple witnesses, including the boy's mother, reported sensing the scent of roses, long considered a sign of Mary's presence. When the Vatican sent medical investigators and theologians, they found something unusual. The healing met all criteria: sudden, complete, and scientifically inexplicable. But what made it holy was who was there. Soon, similar stories began pouring in. In Argentina, a teen crippled by spinal injury reported being visited in a dream by Mary and a boy in red, Carlo's signature sweatshirt. In the Philippines, a young girl with a heart condition was healed after her family placed a holy card of Carlo beneath her pillow. The next day, she told her priest, "Mama Mary and a smiling boy stood beside me all night. They said Jesus still had plans for me." Even in countries with no exposure to Carlo, people described the same encounter. A teenage boy with curly hair, a backpack, a gentle woman in blue beside him. They came together. They healed together. They pointed always to the Eucharist. Carlo's life was radically Eucharistic. He called the Eucharist my highway to heaven. He went to Mass daily from age 7. He said, "If we get in front of the sun, we get suntanned." But if we get in front of Jesus in the Eucharist, we become saints. Mary's promise to work through him seems to be Eucharist-centered, because that's what his entire life pointed to. Every reported apparition, every miracle, every message, returned to the Eucharist. In many apparitions, Mary is seen pointing to a tabernacle or monstrance. Carlo is often kneeling before it. The message is clear. Return to the source. Return to Christ truly present. The Church is cautious. Miracles are not declared lightly. But in Carlo's case, miracles are happening faster than expected. Since his beatification in 2020, over 70 documented claims of miraculous healings have been submitted for study. Nearly all of them involve young people, many involving Marian apparitions, and a majority centered around Eucharistic devotion. In Nigeria, a girl with a brain tumor reportedly recovered after her school prayed a novena to Carlo. In Italy, a young seminarian healed of kidney failure claims he was visited in the night by Mary and Carlo in prayer. Here's what's unusual. The healings happened suddenly, often overnight. The people healed often didn't know about Carlo before the miracle. Many miracles involve Eucharistic adoration, holy cards, or Carlo's online exhibitions. And nearly every story includes both Mary and Carlo. But Mary's promise wasn't just about miracles. It was about mission. She told Carlo, "You will inspire a generation of young saints. I will raise them up through you." And it's happening. In France, entire youth retreats have adopted Carlo as their patron. In Mexico, teens gather weekly for Eucharistic adoration in groups called Carlo Circles. In the United States, dozens of young Catholics have reported vocational awakenings after encountering his story. Carlo's image is in schools, on social media, in dorm rooms, in parishes. And Mary? She's showing up too. Reports of her appearing alongside Carlo, especially to the young, have increased. But it's not just apparitions. It's dreams, feelings, encounters. As one teenager in the UK shared, "I didn't see them, but I felt them. I walked into adoration, and I felt like I was being watched with love." Carlo and Mary, they were with me. Many healings associated with Carlo now include physical phenomena that defy scientific logic. Rosary beads turning gold. Eucharists glowing in photos taken near his tomb. Physical icons of Carlo emitting fragrance. These are being documented but held in quiet by church authorities. Why? Because they suggest something deeper, that Carlo is not just a saint in memory but active. He is a saint of the present tense. And Mary? Her fingerprints are all over it. Inspired by Carlo, global prayer movements have exploded. The Eucharist for Youth initiative in Canada. Carlo's Rosary Challenge across Africa. The Digital Monstrance Project in Italy, where teens share Carlo's Eucharistic exhibition virtually. In all of these, Mary is honored. Often, prayer cards include both of them. Some have even begun calling her Our Lady of the New Saints, because through Carlo, a boy of the modern age, she is calling youth to sanctity. She is proving that holiness is not just possible, it's contagious. In the next, we'll uncover how Mary's promise is reshaping church life around the world. The latest developments, including churches being dedicated to Carlo. And what this means for you, how Mary might be making promises to your heart, even now. If the story is igniting something in your spirit, share it. Comment below if you've ever encountered Carlo's presence. And don't forget to like and subscribe, because we are watching a promise unfold. One apparition, one healing, one young heart at a time. In part 1, we heard the stunning 3-part promise the Virgin Mary made to a dying teenager, Saint Carlo Acutis. A promise that he would remain incorrupt, continue his Eucharistic mission from heaven, and inspire a new generation of saints. In part 2, we explored the miracles that followed. Healings, apparitions, conversions, youth movements rising in his name, and Mary, always present, always pointing to her son through Carlo. Now, in part 3, we ask the deeper questions. What does this mean for the Church, for the world, and for you? Because Mary's promise wasn't just to Carlo. It was a signal that heaven is more involved in our world than we dare to believe. When Carlo was beatified in 2020, the Church didn't just celebrate a holy life. It celebrated a new model of sainthood. He was young. He was digital. He was relatable. But most of all, he was Eucharistic. Church officials began noticing something extraordinary. Parishes with Carlo's exhibitions saw spikes in Eucharistic adoration. Youth groups began adopting him as their spiritual brother. Seminaries began filling again, and many vocations cited Carlo as the spark. In other words, Mary's third promise, that Carlo would inspire a generation, was happening fast. In 2023, the first parish church in the world dedicated to Saint Carlo Acutis was consecrated. It happened in the Philippines, in the Archdiocese of Cebu. During the consecration ceremony, dozens of witnesses reported a phenomenon no one expected. The sanctuary was filled with light, but the lights were off. A woman in blue and a boy in red stood over the altar. Eyewitness. Afterward, the local bishop confirmed that multiple credible reports were being investigated. And then it happened again. In Argentina, in Nigeria, in Italy. Every time a Carlo shrine was established, miracles increased. Youth participation surged, and witnesses reported sensing the presence of both Mary and Carlo. It was a pattern the Church could no longer ignore. Normally, a canonization marks the peak of a saint's influence. But with Carlo, it was only the beginning. Since 2020, over 400 Eucharistic youth groups have been established globally in his name. More than 30 new Eucharistic miracle exhibitions inspired by his work have launched across 5 continents. Catholic schools have adopted Carlo's quote as a motto: "To always be close to Jesus, that's my life plan." In many of these schools, unexplained conversions are happening. Teachers report students turning away from addiction, self-harm, or apathy, drawn to prayer. Drawn to Massachusetts, drawn to him. But the question must be asked, why now? Why is heaven using a 15-year-old boy to lead this renewal? The answer lies in Mary's promise. From the moment Carlo died, Mary's words began to unfold. His incorrupt body fulfilled. His posthumous mission fulfilled. A generation of saints rising. But now we are witnessing something even deeper. A relationship between Mary and Carlo that continues to act visibly in the Church. In theology, saints are understood to intercede. But with Carlo, something more is happening. His miracles often come with a Marian sign. Rosaries turning gold. Fragrance of roses. Apparitions of the Mother beside him. It's as if Mary didn't just make a promise. She entered a partnership. A divine mother and her spiritual son, working together in real time. All across the world, the effects are undeniable. In India, Eucharistic adoration centers have been built in Carlo's name. In Brazil, teenagers hold annual Carlo festivals centered on prayer and testimony. In South Korea, Catholic influencers speak openly of spiritual encounters with Carlo and Mary during live-stream rosaries. And then there are the unseen fruits, private conversions, silent healings, hearts rekindled in dark places. One mother in Canada shared, "My daughter was suicidal. One night she had a dream. She said, 'A boy named Carlo and a beautiful lady told me I wasn't alone.' She's now preparing for confirmation." That's the power of promise. And it's not slowing down. The communion of saints isn't just a beautiful idea. It's a living reality. Carlo Acutis reminds us that sainthood is not a distant memory. It's a present invitation. Mary's promise wasn't only about his mission. It was about our participation. You and I are part of this story. How? By returning to the Eucharist. By trusting Mary as Carlo did. By believing that our ordinary lives, digital, messy, modern, can become paths to holiness. As Carlo said, "We are all born originals, but many die as photocopies." Mary is raising up originals through Carlo, through you. So now the question becomes, what will you do with this story? Because this isn't just a video, it's a summons. If Mary kept her promise to a teenage boy in Milan, in ways that stunned the Vatican and the world, then what promise might she be making to you? Maybe you feel forgotten. Maybe your faith feels weak. Maybe you're yearning for something deeper. Mary sees you. And just as she whispered to Carlo in that hospital room, maybe she's whispering now, "Stay close to my son. I will help you become a saint. This is not just inspiration. It's invitation. If your heart is moved, pray with me now. Heavenly Father, through the intercession of Saint Carlo Acutis and under the protection of our Blessed Mother, awaken in me the desire for holiness. Help me trust in your divine plan. Give me the grace to love your Son in the Eucharist, as Carlo did. And may your promises be fulfilled in my life, just as they were in his. Amen. If this journey touched your soul, like this video so others may see it, subscribe for more true Catholic stories that inspire. Share it with a young person, a parent, a seeker, because Carlo's story isn't finished. Mary's promise is still unfolding, and heaven is closer than we think. Saint Carlo Acutis, pray for us. Our Lady, Queen of Heaven, keep your promises alive in our hearts. Until next time, stay close to Jesus, and believe the same mother who walked with Carlo walks with you.